Tianqing, where exactly did she come from? In the world, whether there was a young chieftain of the Tiangong tribe. Emperor Tianqing. 1,000,000 years ago, or a sixth young lady of the Yun family. Yun Tianqing. 1,000,000 years later, no one knows, not even Tianqing himself. This question is like whether there was a chicken or an egg in the world. Under the influence of the historical tide and in the chaotic time and space, there is no answer at all. But at least, we can connect the stories of Emperor Tianqing and Cloud Tianqing along a timeline. In the context of the world, I am just a small person. But on my stage, I am the only ray of light left in the world. If the whole world doesn't want to give the heavenly workers a way to survive, then I will drag everyone to accompany the heavenly workers on a journey to hell. Tianqing Reader Communication Group 957818444. Interested friends can come in and play keywords of the novel. Tiangong Creativity Beast. No pop-ups. Download the complete collection of Tiangong Creativity Beast TXT, and read the latest chapters of Tiangong Creativity Beast. Chapter 1. Wedge. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Wedge. The night is deep, and the sharp tail of the crescent moon hanging above my head cuts through the silent darkness, casting a gentle yet powerful light into this world. Moonlight scattered all over the ground and also shone into this small thatched cottage, which seemed to have no life fluctuations at first glance. In that bed. No, it can't be said to be a bed, to be precise. It's just a tattered bedding that doesn't even match its name and is casually thrown on the ground, like a pile of garbage. Tianqing was huddled between the bed and bedding, and his curled-up little body was just a manifestation of insecurity. Sweat fell from her head, and with a loud splash, it fell to the ground, splashing star dust and enveloping the dull and moldy existence, soaking it together into the ground. The sound was not loud, but on this quiet night, it sounded particularly noticeable. The owner of the beads of sweat did not respond, only droplets of sweat repeated the story of the former. The darkness tightly grasped Tianqing's soul, firmly pinning her in that nightmare and unable to escape, as if unwilling to do so. In that brilliant and dangerous dream, it seemed that some sound was drifting in Tianqing's ear. Young chieftain, you must leave. The hope of the heavenly workers lies in you. That was a voice that was particularly young but full of vicissitudes. When Tianqing's dull brain heard this sentence, it finally began to rotate, which was like a rusty gear finally being pulled by someone, struggling and struggling. Who? Consciousness wandered outside the plot, and Tianqing was very clear that all of this was just a dream. The dream is hazy, unable to see exactly what happened, only the brilliant colors feedback to the mind, as well as the elusive sound. For some reason, Tianqing always felt that voice gave her a very familiar and friendly feeling. Just hearing that voice gave her a sense of loneliness, tears streaming in her eyes, but she still had to hold on and not let it fall. It was like all the support in the world suddenly disappeared, leaving her alone, helpless and struggling in this world. Helpless struggle. A magical sense of mission intertwined with anger and determination erupted from within Tianqing before she even realized it. It was as rapid and intense as a volcanic eruption, and by the time Tianqing discovered it, it had already swept through her entire body. It seems to have existed for a long, long time, but only a chance. Buried by time, imprisoned and locked in, that period of experience that Tianqing never knew accompanied this long dream in her eyes. The same déjà vu, the same touching heart. Tianqing understood in a moment that this was her memory. It's not the memory of Yun Tianqing, the sixth miss of Yun Mansion who had been living in the Lord's mansion of Yunhua City for the past 20 years, but another self who she didn't know but had been there all along. Who are you? Who am I? Again. A self-generated and self-directed question unfolds in sleep. In the real world, the small body curled up in the bedding is surrounded by a faint and shimmering air mass. What stunning colors that are! You can see the dominance of golden red, the coldness of ice blue, the vitality of pale blue, the charm of dream purple, the fate of black and white. blooming and converging before your eyes. The noble animal scales that wander between colors seem to indicate something. The bedding, which was originally not even suitable for garbage, washed away its antiquity in debris in this soft light, gradually shrinking and finally turning into a blue ribbon. The ribbon was like a living consciousness, consciously wrapped around Yun Qing's wrist. At the moment when a pair of eyes were wrapped in ribbons, they opened and gathered the most beautiful radiance in the world, while the corners of their mouths were thin and cool. Change your place. When this sentence came out, the blue ribbon seemed to have understood, sliding down from the girl's fair wrist. After a slight hesitation, it wrapped around the girl's hair. The soft ink hair, under the action of the ribbon, is tied together at the upper end, but still scattered below. The girl stood up and took a step forward, with a hint of confusion flashing on her exquisite and beautiful face. She knows her identity is not simple, but she only knows that. The memory hidden in her mind was like being shackled by someone, unable to be opened until the right time. Step by step, Tianqing swayed out of the small thatched cottage, taking advantage of the moonlight to look back at the small thatched cottage that had been draped in rosy clothes by the moonlight, as if it were somewhat extraordinary. There shouldn't have been such a dirty, messy and destitute place in the Lord's mansion of Yunhua City, but for some reason, this small thatched cottage is here, quietly waiting for the person who should appear to retrieve lost memories. Tianqing's hand touched the blue ribbon, as if holding on to a trace of connection with the past. I can't stay here any longer. Tianqing's voice was very soft, drifting with the wind and unable to drift far away, but the firmness and determination in her words were so strong that it made people wonder what she had just encountered in that dream. The next day, the entire Cloud Moon City was boiling. There was no other reason. The sixth young lady in the Lord's mansion was expelled from the Yun family. Some people say that it was the Lord of the city, who was the second Lord of the Cloud Mansion, who finally took action against the only child left behind by the elder brother. The Lord of Cloud Moon City is the second master of the Cloud Mansion. He is a Qingjie beast creator, who is definitely a stunning and rare talent in Cloud Moon City. But everyone in Yunhua City knows that the long-lost master of Yun Mansion, Yun Qing, is the true peerless pride. Even if he goes to the middle domain, he can still thrive as a blue-rank beast creator. If it weren't for his disappearance, how could the Lord of Yunhua City have obtained Yun Qingjue, a person who can't compare to his elder brother anywhere? Some people also say that it was the sixth miss of the Yun Mansion, named Yun Tianqing, who did unforgivable things and fled overnight. It was only then that the angry Cloud City Lord completely disowned this niece. The basis for this statement is naturally that someone saw the sixth miss from the Yun Mansion leaving the city overnight, and the news that the Yun Mansion kicked her out was only released this afternoon. Based on time inference, this is indeed a highly likely cause. What the truth is, no one in the Cloud Mansion has come forward to explain, and no one wants to curb the spread of various rumors. So, within a day, everyone in Yunhua City knew that Yun Tianqing, the sixth miss of Yun Mansion, had nothing to do with Yun Mansion. As time passed, more and more people in the southern region became aware of this matter. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. A young man lies on the roadside. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. A young man lies on the roadside. The weather was hot, and this slightly disheveled mercenary group that had just emerged from the green desert forest walked towards the nearest water source. Brother, there's someone here. Gu Qin saw with keen eyes an unconscious person next to the nearby stream. The person who was called brother by the young girl was clearly the commander of this mercenary regiment. At this moment, the young man of the sword eyebrow star frowned tightly, seeming to be hesitant. Brother. Gu Qin, who was charming, didn't hear her brother's answer and tilted her neck, her voice mixed with a hint of confusion. Upon hearing his sister's voice, Gu sighed and finally waved helplessly towards the brothers following behind. Go and take a look. It shouldn't be those people chasing after them. Their movements this time are very secretive, and the brothers following them are new acquaintances, and there won't be any undercover agents like before. Gu Qin saw her brother agree and showed a bright smile, walking briskly towards the unconscious person. Shao. Captain, should we manage Mrs. Temperament? A middle-aged man in his 40s and 50s frowned when he saw Gu Qin's unprepared movements in the mercenary group. The master and lady are both gone, and the young master and lady have not completely escaped danger yet. Mrs. Innocent and carefree personality used to be nothing, anyway, the master and lady could protect her, but now, no problem. Guyu looked at his younger sister with a gentle and soft gaze. Her sister was like whatever she wanted, and if there were any problems, he would help solve them. If she leaves her parents and wants Qiner to suppress her nature, how can she live up to her parents who have knowledge under the spring? That's right, Uncle Zhong. Xiao Qin has a good personality and there's nothing to manage. Upon hearing what Zhong Wenjin, the team leader, said, Yu Liang felt a bit unhappy. Xiao Qin has such a good personality, why bother to discipline her? Yu Liang, who was infinitely biased towards Gu Qin, even kicked his cousin Yusen to make Yusen agree with him. Yusen touched his kicked buttocks, and the big guy looked confused and couldn't understand the hint in his cousin's eyes. Yu Liang was so angry that his teeth itched. Yusen, this fool, couldn't even understand with such simple eyes. At this moment, Gu Qin had already run to the unconscious person. That was a handsome young man with a clean temperament. Even if he was a bit embarrassed now, he couldn't conceal his refreshing and pure temperament like a spring. A green ribbon was tightly held in the young man's palm, which seemed to be something very important to him. A young man like this is clearly not in line with the melody of the Qingma forest, but more like a simple and clean young master raised in a simple aristocratic family in the backyard. Gu Qin had to admit that she had never seen a cleaner and more touching existence than this young man, nor had there been a man that shone in front of her more than this young man. Xiao Qin, this kind of little white face is not a good match at first glance. Yu Liang saw the astonishment in Gu Qin's eyes and sounded an alarm in his heart, quickly giving people eye drops. Yu Liang was born into a poor family and started to seek survival at a young age. Naturally, he did not have the fair skin of this young man on the ground, nor could he form the clean and clear temperament of a young man. So, for this young man, he doesn't like how he looks now. How can a good match simply look at their appearance? Gu Qin didn't seem to take Yu Liang's words to heart, and even had the idea of taking the young man back. Such a beautiful and clean boy is not very safe to be alone outside, and he is also unconscious, which makes it even more dangerous. Brother. Gu Qin only spoke halfway before getting stuck. What did she see? Yu Liang's finger, which was about to touch the boy, was stopped by a light red barrier. When did the barrier appear? Why didn't she see it before? It seems that someone is guarding this young man, maybe it's his beast. Guyu also saw the exceptionally firm barrier that would intercept Yu Liang. This barrier gives people a feeling very much like the power of creating beasts. Since there is a barrier, let's go. Yu Liang didn't feel any aggression from within that barrier, perhaps he himself didn't have any malicious intent. However, since there is a barrier guarding this kid, they naturally don't need to worry about him. They just took the opportunity to ask to leave. No way. Unexpectedly, Gu Qin was exceptionally decisive this time and firmly disagreed with leaving like this. Who knows how long this barrier can last, and in case it breaks. This is near the Qingma forest. What if this young man is taken away by the beasts on the outskirts of the Qingma forest? Yu Liang really wants to say what it has to do with them if they were taken away. They had no relationship with this young man for no reason, they just met by chance. But he dared not. Gu Qin's expression and gaze at this moment made him dare not say such a sentence. What does Qiner mean to bring people back? Guyu was truly an older brother and immediately expressed his sister's intentions. Can't you, brother? Gu Qin's pretty face blushed slightly, and her voice was soft with a hint of prayer. Guyu was originally a girl control, let alone Gu Qin speaking to him in this tone. Even if she felt it was not appropriate to bring a stranger, she wouldn't say anything to refuse. Zhong Wenjin felt even more headache when he saw the young master who was confused and agreed to the young lady's request. This is not just one person's personality that needs to be managed, it's clear that both people need to be well managed. Hey, why didn't the master and lady teach these two well back then? Is it possible for them to take a stranger to their place of residence in their current situation? Yu Liang is very unwilling to bring this little white face on. Before he wakes up, he has become so obsessed with Shao Qin that he can't find him. If he wakes up, he still has something else to do. Yusen didn't know what his cousin was thinking, so he only focused on the key point and wanted to bring back the little brother lying on the ground. He is the strongest among the people present, so the heavy responsibility of moving must have fallen on him. So Yusen took a step forward and reached out his hand to pick up the young man on the ground and resist. Ah! Zhong Wenjin was startled by Yusen's reckless actions and quickly tried to stop him. This kind of barrier, which is likely set by the creator, is not so easy to break, and forcibly breaking it may also pose a risk to life. But when Zhong Wenjin said this, it was already too late. Yusen's hand had already reached out and crossed the barrier. It went very smoothly without any obstacles, and the only thing I could hear was probably a very panicked whoop. The light red barrier is like a glass punched by gravity, quickly cracking, breaking, and disappearing. Ah! Yusen finally noticed the light red barrier that couldn't be seen if he didn't look carefully. Oh, now it has become a ground of almost disappearing debris. Guess who the clean and refreshing little brother is? Guess it right, no prize. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. The girl will not leave temporarily. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. The girl will not leave temporarily. Sorry, I didn't mean to. Yusen scratched his head, his honest face filled with innocence. He didn't notice anything here. He didn't intentionally break this thing. He may not be able to afford this thing. But at this moment, no one paid attention to what Sen said, and everyone was very vigilant as they watched what slowly appeared next to the clean and refreshing young man. Guyu protected his sister behind him, his eyes guarded, and he even regretted his meddling this time. Their matter is already troublesome enough, why does he still allow his sister to meddle in this troublesome matter? Unexpectedly, what slowly materialized was a little girl of 5 or 6 years old. The little girl was wearing a pink dress with 2 small braids tied to her head, and her moist eyes contained a hint of innocence and purity. At this moment, her round little face was full of panic. What are you people? What do you want to do? The little girl reached out her lotus-like, plump little hand and stood in front of the unconscious and clean young boy on the ground, looking guarded at the few people who had broken through her defense. Discovering that only a child appeared, everyone didn't show it on their faces, but they still breathed a sigh of relief in their hearts. Fortunately, it's not something dangerous. Most of the mercenaries in the mercenary group have not yet started a family or started a career, but when such a cute and soft girl appears, it still makes people unconsciously soften their hearts, as if this little girl should have been spoiled by them. The only mercenary in the group who married a wife, Yu Ping, looked at the little girl who was about the same age as his stinky little boy and instinctively spoke softly, "Little girl, we have no ill intentions." The vast majority of mercenaries are men with big arms and thick waists, and the one who is speaking now has a somewhat fierce appearance. This softened his voice and instinctively wanted to show a kind smile, combined with his scarred face, which was even more frightening. But the little girl did not show any fear on her face. Instead, she tilted her head and looked at the mercenary, as if evaluating the person's credibility. Finally, she pinched the hem of her small skirt and spoke in a soft, obedient voice, "Okay, that girl will believe you." The little girl lifted her chin and made a reluctant expression, which was so cute that Gu Qin wanted to reach out and touch this serious little face. Gu Qin did indeed do that. Before Gu Yu and Uncle Zhong could react, he extended his claws. The little girl who claimed to be a girl had her face pinched by someone and looked a bit flustered. She angrily patted Gu Qin's hand and gave her eyes a fierce glare without any deterrent power, only to receive Gu Qin's gradually expanding smile. Nan Nan didn't feel any malice from these people, which is why she didn't guard against being caught by Gu Qin. It's not that easy now. Gu Qin saw the little girl holding her face and staring at her with a guarded expression, and the smile on her lips became even more pronounced. The feel is quite good. Sister. Gu Yu's voice was somewhat helpless, but more indulgent. Why is sister so playful? Zhong Wenjin looked at the girl with a very cautious expression. Although this guy seemed to be just a helpless child, who knew? What if it's just a very powerful beast creator who doesn't have good intentions towards them? Zhong Wenjin dare not gamble, nor can he afford to. If something happens to the young master and young lady, where would he have the face to meet the old master and his wife? Gu Qin felt that her brother and Uncle Zhong were just too nervous. They were just children, so there was no danger. She looked at the little girl with a smile in her eyes and said, "Girl, is this your brother? It's not very safe here. Would you and your brother consider going with your sister?" With Gu Qin's tone and content, if someone else were to come, it would definitely mean that they want to kidnap and sell children, but the person speaking is Gu Qin, who is very kind and helpful, with no other intention. She was originally pampered and raised. Although she was caught off guard and faced a family upheaval, she wandered all the way and was well protected by her brother. So Gu Qin's temperament is still stuck in that stage of innocence, enthusiasm, and simplicity. No way. The little girl was still frowning and thinking, and Zhong Wenjin's voice of opposition came out. "Miss, why doesn't she have any defense at all? She's so kind-hearted at this time. The barrier that just appeared here is definitely the power of a beast creator, which indicates that one of the siblings, big and small, must be a beast creator. The big one is unconscious, while the small one appears innocent and ignorant of worldly affairs. However, if they can withstand their appearance on the necessary path in the green desert forest, then these two people are definitely not that simple. And that barrier clearly had the power to intercept Yu Liang outside. How could it be directly broken when it was Yu Sen's turn? This matter is eerie everywhere, and Zhong Wenjin doesn't want his young master and young lady to get involved at all. Who knows if getting involved in this kind of thing will bring them huge trouble. Sister, since someone in your team is unwilling, the girl and brother still won't come with you and won't cause any trouble for you. If the expression on the girl's face was originally indecisive, then Zhong Wenjin's words can be said to have finally made the little girl's decision. She and brother shouldn't be such annoying guys. The other party doesn't welcome them, and they won't rush to get along. It's not like they can't do anything without them. The girl nodded with a hint of seriousness on her delicate and beautiful face, as if agreeing with what she was saying. Her every move carries a polite and reserved demeanor, making her undoubtedly a child with excellent upbringing. This is what you said, don't rely on us. Yu Liang's eyes lit up when he heard the little girl's words. He was worried that he wouldn't be able to make Xiaoqin give up and take that little white face out. Who knew the opportunity would just come to his door? This is not that they don't want to, it's that the other party doesn't want to go with them, so be on their guard. Yu Liang, get out of here. Gu Qin rolled her eyes when she heard Yu Liang's words. What's wrong with this guy? How could he take a child's words seriously? How could such a young child know what the current situation is, and how could they make decisions? Qiner, don't use foul language. Gu Yu was still pondering and analyzing the current situation when he heard Gu Qin's rolling words. Suddenly, he reached out his hand and tapped Gu Qin's head. Not heavy, but with a strong warning. Brother. Gu Qin covered her head, her tone and expression full of grievances, but Gu Yu, the girl in control, did not soften her heart. His sister cannot use foul language, no matter what the situation is. This is his only insistence as a brother, because both he and his deceased parents hope that Qing will become a courteous girl in the future. The little girl politely waited for those people to handle her own affairs before starting to rush. Her voice was soft and she said, "My brother and I can't leave with you. Thank you for your kindness, little sister. You should leave quickly." Nan insists on not leaving with them, and Gu Qin cannot force anyone to be with them. She is not that kind of person. Although she really wanted to bring back the clear and clean boy on the ground. Whispering to the little girl, if she stayed here, she should pay attention to safety and not walk towards the direction of the green desert forest. With some regret, Gu Qin followed her brother and others in planning to leave. Gu Qin, who was afraid of turning around and looking back, couldn't bear to let go of the young man. She didn't turn back, and naturally didn't notice the eerie light that suddenly flashed in the eyes of the obedient and soft girl in her eyes. "You will come back. Nan believes that you are good people and will definitely come back." A low voice drifted through the air, losing its traces of existence, as if it were just a hallucination. "Girl. In order to lean, I actually failed to learn, sigh. Someone. In gratitude for the recommended vote cast by Nanfeng Jiewa Ijin Blade, I actually sent tomorrow's ahead of schedule. Sigh." End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Turnback. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Turnback. Not caring about those siblings, the saddest and most depressed person is Gu Qin, and Yu Liang is undoubtedly the one who enjoys it the most among everyone. The little white face that made Xiaoqing's heart beat with a skin bag finally couldn't follow them. Yu Liang's mood is even happier than when he made a lot of money and returned home in glory. If it weren't for the constraints, he would have wanted to sing a song. A few people didn't go far before they felt the faint vibration of the earth. Ha! Which herd of animals has run out? There are often some animals that run out of the range of the Qingma forest, and sometimes even run outside the Qingma city. So this scene is not uncommon for mercenaries making a living around the green desert forest, and everyone who feels the herd running by has no panic in their eyes. After all, it is impossible for someone who can make a living in the green desert forest without any means. They are not afraid of a small herd of animals running out. Moreover, based on the vibration, it is likely that only 2 or 3 beasts escaped this time. They are 2 black drum bears. Zhong Wenjin, with the blessing of his own creation beast, saw clearly the nearby beasts. The black drum bear has infinite strength, and when it runs, it feels like hitting a drum. No wonder both of them make such a big noise. Where have they gone? Gu Qin suddenly felt a thud in her heart, asking, with a panic in her voice that she had not even noticed. To the east. Zhong Wenjin didn't understand why the young lady's tone was so flustered. They didn't have to be afraid of 2 small black drum bears. But he still pointed in one direction, and when he saw the direction of his finger, he suddenly understood. Those 2 siblings are in that direction. Accompanied by this exclamation of surprise, Gu Qin rushed back quickly. Gu Yu's eyebrows slightly raised and quickly beckoned his brothers to follow. Although it is unclear what the origins of those 2 siblings are, Gu Yu still cannot refuse to save them. And his sister has already passed away. Her sister is just a yellow-level beast creator, she can't even deal with those 2 black drum bears. Zhong Wenjin's face was filled with worry and reproach. Before the young lady did something, could she think about whether she had that ability? She has only created 1 beast so far, and the Huangjie beast creator dares to run so recklessly to save people. I'm afraid it's not to save people, but to give the black drum bear a tooth sacrifice. Feeling reproachful in his heart, Zhong Wenjin quickly integrated the abilities of the legendary beast Jiefeng leopard in his hand and chased after Gu Qin. When Zhong Wenjin arrived, he saw her young lady chasing after 2 clearly angered black drum bears. In the distance, the little girl hugged her brother, trembling and looking at Gu Qin and the 2 black drum bears with worried and fearful eyes. I have a bit of conscience, and I know I'm worried about their young lady. Zhong Wenjin snorted in his heart, raised his hand, and softly called out. Nanchi. With Zhong Wenjin's gentle call, a light green light appeared on the open space in front of him, outlining a huge shape. The wind gradually rose, with a light green light cluster at the center, and the surrounding withered leaves poured backwards. Soon, the light green light disappeared and a bear appeared in the center. The color of a bear is a light brown, with only a pinch of light-colored hair on its forehead. Those bright yellow eyes flashed with a humanized light, and when they appeared, they observed the surrounding scenery and knew deeply what they should do at this moment. At this moment, Gu Qin saw Uncle Zhong coming and called out Nanchi. His eyes lit up and he ran towards Nanchi's side. Nanchi is the founding beast of Zhong Wenjin, with a loyalty to the Gu family that is ingrained in him. Seeing Gu Qin running over, a hint of indulgence flashed in its eyes, and then it roared at the two ungrateful black drum bears. Roar. Get away, otherwise don't blame me for being impolite. The two black drum bears hesitated for a moment. They really didn't want to let go of the little human who provoked them, but they were very certain that they were not a match for the bear. They could only reluctantly roar a few times and then retreat. This is not their territory, and even if something happens, the boss won't cover them up. We can't fight against foreign bears here. Humph. Seeing the black drum bear leave, Gu Qin breathed a sigh of relief. She was the only one who created the beast, and couldn't really beat these two black drum bears. Thinking of this, Gu Qin looked up and smiled sweetly at Zhong Wenjin. Thank you, Uncle Zhong. I really want to thank you. Don't do such dangerous things in the future. Zhong Wenjin scolded with a stern face, but the corners of his mouth couldn't help but rise, obviously very fond of Gu Qin's trick. Gu Qin stuck out her tongue and reached out to touch Nanchi. Her voice was clear and pleasant. Thank you Nanchi, you are so powerful. Zhong Wenjin saw Gu Qin's action, feeling helpless and amused. Qiner, are you okay? Gu Yu, who arrived late with a group of brothers, finally came over. The first sentence was to inquire about Gu Qin's situation. Following behind Gu Yu, Yu Liang also looked at Gu Qin with a worried expression on his face, his hands slightly open, and finally he put them down. I'm fine, brother. Gu Qin allowed her brother to scrutinize, and only dared to smile when he finally felt relieved. How dare you say that? You're too reckless this time. If you really want to save someone, you have to go with your brother. Gu Yu reached out and nodded at Gu Qin's nose, feeling a bit annoyed. Fortunately, this time it was just two silly black drum bears. Although Qiner couldn't solve it, she still had no problem protecting herself. If something else happens and something happens, he will regret it without any regrets. Brother, when you come, those two siblings will have no bones left. Gu Qin complained softly. She was eager to save people. When she arrived and saw those two black drum bears wanting to attack those two siblings, her heart was almost pounding. If it were any slower, both of these people would be dead. In my brother's heart, your safety is the most important thing. Qiner, remember, everyone should line up behind you. Gu Yu earnestly turned Gu Qin's head and reminded him. He does not object to his sister having kindness and wanting to help others, but the premise is that she must ensure her own safety. Brother, I remember. Gu Qin stuck out her tongue and was finally let go by her own brother before she had the time to check the situation of the siblings. Little sister, are you all okay? It's okay, thank you miss for saving us. The little girl politely thanked us. You're welcome, it's a piece of cake. Gu Qin walked up to the girl and reached out to rub her little head. Although the girl was somewhat reluctant for others to touch her head, she did not avoid it. The unconscious young man on the ground had no idea what danger he had experienced in such a short period of time. He still lay on the ground, with a clean and spring-like demeanor that made Gu Qin instinctively lose his mind. Girl, why is your brother unconscious here? This is not a safe green desert forest, and being unconscious in such a place is still very dangerous. Although this young man gives a clean and refreshing feeling, he doesn't seem like someone who is ignorant and lacks common sense. How could he faint in such a place? Brother. The girl only said 2 words before leaving the rest, clearly not wanting to say more. Qing also understood and did not force an inquiry. Who doesn't have their own secret yet? She and her brother also have secrets. But this place is really unsafe. If they leave, these siblings are likely to be eaten by some beast that ran out. Just now was it? So, Qing once again invited Nan to go to Qingma City with them. Qing. It's really dangerous to leave the little brother and little sister here. I want to take the person away, Nan. Since you sincerely invite, then someone lying on the ground. Don't you think it's not good for me to make a decision without asking? End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Awakening. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Awakening. This time, the girl did not refuse. Obviously, what had just happened also scared the little girl. She just hesitated and glanced at Zhong Wenjin. This uncle doesn't want her and her brother to go with them. Qing also noticed the little movements of the girl and hesitated to look at Zhong Wenjin. Her voice was filled with requests and a hint of flattery. Uncle Zhong. Zhong Wenjin couldn't bear the young lady's appearance, and after a while, he compromised. Okay, with a belt. Guyu's mouth twitched slightly when he saw this, and he even said that he was used to playing the piano, and Uncle Zhong himself was no exception. Yu Liang glared at the young man on the ground with some anger. His movements were very subtle, afraid that Qing, who had a high liking for the siblings, would notice him and become dissatisfied with him. Yu Sen had no such thoughts. He rubbed his head and took the initiative to suggest carrying the unconscious teenager. As soon as Yu Liang's eyes lit up, yes, Yu Sen and his companions could quietly give people some pain to eat. I didn't expect my foolish cousin to finally become smarter. Unfortunately, after walking all the way, Yu Sen clearly did not intend to give the young man any hard work until they entered the city, and this incident did not happen. Obviously, Yu Sen was not as clever as Yu Liang had imagined, but rather determined and genuinely wanted to bring the young man back. Worried about making the young man uncomfortable on the road, he even used his beast-creating power to ensure that he walked steadily with every step. Yu Liang was so angry that his teeth itched, but he couldn't blame his cousin. My cousin is stubborn and honest, and this is not the first time he has known about it. Because the young man has been unconscious and the little girl is only 5 or 6 years old, obviously she does not have the ability to take care of herself. Of course, the most important thing is that Qing insists. So these 2 people were placed on the territory of the Yuehu Mercenary Corps. The home of the Yuehu Mercenary Corps in Qingma City is not a large mansion, where 12 members of the Yuehu Mercenary Corps live on weekdays, as well as the only married mercenary Yu Ping's wife and son. Although the house is not large, there is still no problem temporarily placing the next siblings. Yu Ping's daughter Law is a hardworking housewife. During the days when the mercenary group went out, she managed the house very well and everything was in good order. And at this moment, seeing the captain and his companions bringing back a pair of siblings, they quickly arranged their accommodation. Seeing his brother unconscious, Lanny even made plans to hire a doctor. Fortunately, this action was stopped by Nan. Nan's explanation for this was that her brother was not seriously injured and would soon wake up, so there was no need to ask a doctor. Lanny was originally determined to hire a doctor, but after hearing the girl's words, Zhong Wenjin helped to stop Lanny. He fled with the young master and young lady, naturally aware of the potential danger in this small move. Thank you, uncle. The girl saw Zhong Wenjin's actions and her eyes flickered slightly. She looked up and thanked her very wisely, and a bright smile bloomed on this young and lovely face. Zhong Wenjin's expression flickered for a moment, and when he regained his senses, he snorted coldly, I don't care what trouble you have, don't involve us. We are just an ordinary mercenary group to make a living. The girl blinked her round eyes and looked at Zhong Wenjin with a puzzled expression, as if she didn't know what Zhong Wenjin was talking about. Zhong Wenjin didn't care either. He couldn't see through whether the child's innocence was real or just a disguise, but that wasn't important. As long as they didn't cause trouble for the young master and young lady, he could tolerate these two siblings. If you dare to cause them trouble, then don't blame him for being impolite. Zhong Wenjin's eyes flashed with cruelty and ruthlessness. He understood their situation, but that didn't mean he would put the young master and miss in trouble for them. Zhong Wenjin's turn and departure only made the little girl shake her head like a grown-up. This scene made Gu Qin, who was looking for the girl, instinctively bend her lips. It was so cute. "Little sister, are you here to find a girl?" Gu Qin clearly didn't make any sound, but the girl seemed to be equipped with radar. When Gu Qin walked in, she quickly turned her head and asked with moist eyes. Upon being discovered, Gu Qin walked over very directly and crouched down, reaching out to pinch the girl's round cheeks with a smile in her eyes. "Your brother is awake." "What?" She woke up. "That's great." Before Gu Qin could fully recover, the girl rushed into the room arranged for them by the Yuehu mercenary corps like an arrow from Li Xian. Helplessly shaking her head, Gu Qin stood up and prepared to walk towards the room to see the clean and elegant little brother. As soon as I stood up, I noticed Gu Yu standing behind the rockery, who had been watching them for an unknown amount of time. "Brother." Gu Qin's voice was filled with confusion, and more. "Why is brother standing here? What is he looking at? Are they moving again? But she's not very willing to be with her new brothers." Gu Yu nodded, and the thought on his face disappeared when he saw Gu Qin, replacing it with a very gentle and indulgent smile. "Brother, you." Gu Qin originally wanted to ask what Gu Yu was looking at, but when faced with Gu Yu's face, she couldn't quite ask. Even if she knows something, she can't do anything to help or make any decisions. "I just heard you say that the older brother among the siblings is awake," Gu Yu coughed lightly and asked with some embarrassment. "Ah, yes." Gu Qin instinctively answered when she heard her brother's question. When she realized what his brother had asked, her eyes widened. "Brother, why are you asking this? Isn't it that brother doesn't like to see those siblings? How could you suddenly ask this?" Gu Qin saw her brother's slightly red ears and a somewhat awkward expression, as if she suddenly understood something. "I plan to go and see him. Do you want to come with him?" "You go, I won't go." Gu Yu coughed lightly again, his ears turning even redder. "No matter what happens, people remember to come over and tell me." Gu Qin understood and answered crisply, "I know." Seeing Gu Qin leave, Gu Yu's face regained composure, and there was no red in his ears. He looked at the place where the girl had stood before, lost in thought. That little girl named Nan is definitely not as simple as she appears. Being able to detect Gu Qin's appearance so keenly, and being able to find her brother so quickly in the past, this girl must have integrated her ability to create beasts. However, in a relatively safe place, without the ability of her phantom beast to constantly survey the surrounding environment, this girl still lacks a sense of security than he imagined. Gu Yu shook his head, feeling that his sister had picked up a big trouble this time. He hoped it wouldn't bring any changes to their difficult and stable life. "Girl. It seems like something has been exposed. Shouldn't it affect you? Does it not affect the sound?" End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Yu Gongzi. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Yu Gongzi. A boy with a clean temperament like a spring lying on the bed, just looking at him gives a feeling of tranquility in time. Suddenly, the thin eyelashes, as thin as cicada wings, trembled lightly. Slowly, the eyelashes lifted, revealing those clear eyes. What kind of eyes are those? Just like the sky after rain, washed by the rain, clean, clear, and moving. At this moment, there was still a hint of confusion in these eyes, as if I didn't know why I had changed places when I opened them. And in the depths of cleanliness and confusion, there is deep vigilance and vigilance. The room is a place she doesn't know. Her mind was still in a newly awakened chaos, and her consciousness was still wandering outside her body. Suddenly, a voice rang out in her sea of consciousness. Qing, you finally woke up. Accompanied by this voice was a very soft and lovely voice in her ear, shouting, brother, you finally woke up. You're so worried about the dead girl. Woo-woo. Tianqing reluctantly turned his body and looked towards the sound source. This body hasn't been passive for a long time, and when it suddenly rotates, it feels really sour and refreshing. Heaven leans in his heart and roast. While she was still thinking about these things, the sound source had already run over and lay on top of her still numb body, crying in a very demonic voice. Woo-woo. Brother, it's good that you're okay, otherwise how can the girl live alone? Tianqing's eyebrows furrowed subconsciously, not only because of the torment caused by this demonic cry on her just awakened brain, but also because of the sound that rang out again in her sea of consciousness. Qing, as long as you're okay, we're currently in Qinghua City. What are you? Tianqing tentatively replied with a sentence, while his eyes instinctively glanced at the crying little loli in front of him. There was no other reason, the sound in the sea was the same as the crying of the little loli in front of her. I'm not something, I'm your little cutie. The grievances in that voice were almost overflowing, and at the same time, the crying of little loli, who had been crying very smoothly, paused for a moment. Little cutie. What the hell? Tianqing's eyebrows and heart twitched fiercely. She didn't know when she had an extra little cutie. However, it can be confirmed that both sounds were made by the guy in front of me. Although there was still some confusion about the situation, Tianqing had no aversion to this little girl in his heart, but rather had a hint of closeness. It's like this guy was already a part of her and has been with her for a long, long time. Tianqing reluctantly reached out his hand and placed it on Xiaoyulai's head. After hesitating for a moment, he rubbed it. Throughout the process, the girl did not resist at all, but instead cooperated and leaned her head forward. The original crying suddenly stopped, one touching their head and the other being touched, looking harmonious. Gu Qin, who walked in, felt a bit reluctant to disrupt this harmony and hesitated whether to go out first to leave some space for the siblings. But when her eyes saw that face, her feet couldn't move. When my eyes were closed, I was a clear and clean young man like a spring. Who would have thought that when I opened my eyes, this feeling became even more apparent? The young man's eye color is a very beautiful blue in the clear sky after rain. That color originally gives people a feeling of time tranquility and world clarity, combined with the clean and pure temperament of the young man, this feeling is even more obvious. At this moment, perhaps because his gaze was too hot, the boy had already noticed her. When he looked at her, her silhouette was reflected in his eyes, like the only color on the lake. Gu Qin heard the sound of her heart beating, and it kept ringing in her ear, with each sound becoming stronger and stronger. I want to know, what is the current situation? Tianqing naturally noticed the charming girl's gaze as she walked in, but she was a bit unclear about how this somewhat affectionate and shy gaze came about. She is clearly a girl. In this situation, Tianqing felt that it was very necessary for the little loli who called her brother to give her an answer. What exactly happened when she was unconscious, and why did her social gender change from a girl to a boy? This. You can tell that the girl's tone is a bit hesitant, but after Tianqing's hand on her head exerted a slight force, the girl said everything like pouring beans. Just. I don't know why, when I appeared, you were like this now. This tone, this pace of speech, quite a bit of a broken can and a falling posture. Finally, the girl seemed to have thought of something and added. And I don't know why, I always feel like it's not your first time looking like this. What does it look like? Tian listened to the last words of the girl, his mind moved, and he asked. On the surface, she just finally lifted her head and looked at the girl who walked in, with nothing in her eyes, as if she had everything. This kind of action is like something engraved in Tianqing's bones, casually pinched. A very handsome and refreshing young man, looking 17 or 18 years old, gives a very clean feeling. The girl answered Tianqing's words truthfully, while also looking her eyes at Qing. Watched by two pairs of eyes, one big and one small, one clear and one moist, Qing felt a bit embarrassed. The key is that these two siblings just looked at her and didn't say anything, which really made her a bit embarrassed. Girl. After hearing the description of the girl, Tianqing had a calculation. Is it a clean young man? She showed a very shallow smile, a small pear vortex with a hint of cleanliness and lightness. Brother, it was Miss who saved us. The girl immediately spoke out, rushing as if afraid that her own brother might misunderstand Qing. Tianqing's smile remained unchanged, and the hand placed on the girl's head rubbed her hair, indicating that she knew. Girl, thank you very much for saving me. Tianqing thanked her, and her chosen voice was like a trickle, clear and soothing, perfectly fitting the sound of a clean boy. This voice did not arouse Qing's suspicion, and it perfectly matched all Qing's fantasies about this young boy's voice. Qing's cheeks turned red and she waved her hand in a panic, her voice stuttering as she said, "No, you don't need to thank me. It's a pleasure to raise your hand. For the girl, it may be a simple task, but for you, it is a life-saving gesture. I wonder if I can know the girl's name." When the name Mou rushed into Tianqing's mind, there was an inexplicable feeling that told her that it was her name. She doesn't belong to Miss Six of Yunhua City in Yunfu, nor does she belong to the painful and helpless one in the dream, but rather the name she should have with her current appearance. At this moment, Tianqing agreed with what Nan said, which was the appearance she had used more than once. My thoughts are floating in my heart, but my face still has a very warm and refreshing smile, like a spring like bamboo, like ink like jade. Of course, I can. My name is Qing. As Qing blushed and said her name, she heard a very clear smile coming from her ear. Tianqing. I never expected that she would appear in men's clothing, and my sister is clearly a female tycoon girl, innocent. This has nothing to do with me, Qing. It's none of my business, I just appreciate the beauty and cleanliness, little brother. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Dialogue between Nan and Tianqing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Dialogue between Nan and Tianqing. This name sounds really nice, Miss Qing. Although Tianqing was half lying in bed, her refreshing, clean, and comfortable breath seemed to be unrestricted. Qing felt a bit dizzy. Ah, this young man really fits all her expectations for the kind of boy she likes. She can't do it anymore. Let me help you see if the congee prepared for you is ready. Qing faced the dilemma that she did not know how to deal with, and her choice was to escape. No, just leave this sentence and slip out. And this did not exceed Tianqing's expectations. When Tianqing saw this young girl, he knew that this charming and lovely girl was essentially a somewhat shy girl. Although I don't know how she fell in love with me before I woke up, it doesn't prevent Tianqing from analyzing the behavioral tendencies of this young girl named Qing. Chat here. As soon as the person left, the girl left such a sentence in Tianqing's mind. Her moist eyes stared at Tianqing without blinking, as if afraid that someone would say it directly and be heard. Nan is a very vigilant little girl. Tianqing glanced at the girl and closed his eyes, saying, I'll rest a little longer, I'm still a bit dizzy. The girl's mouth was wide open, and her expression was hesitant to speak. She nodded only when she heard a voice, and her expression was obedient. Okay, I'm here to watch over you. Is there a problem around? This is the voice that Tianqing had just closed her eyes and conveyed to the girl. It was also this sentence that made Nan sure that Tian listened to her words. No, it's safer to chat here. The girl moved a small stool to the head of Tianqing's bed, with her small hand supporting her chin, and obediently watched Tianqing, just as she said, guarding him. Oh, Tianqing's words were somewhat silent, as if he didn't know what response to give, so he gave a perfunctory word. The girl's mouth opened slightly, feeling a bit confused and unsure of what to say. Fortunately, Tianqing's next sentence came quickly. What do you want to talk about? The implication is, what's there to talk about? The confusion in the girl's eyes has become even heavier. Yes, what are we talking about? Can you talk about why she appeared? But she doesn't know about this question either, and Li Ning should know why, just like she knows she wants to follow Li Ning. That is a very magical feeling. A certain memory in your past life may have been sealed off, no matter how difficult it is to pry, but the feeling left by that memory, the trace that runs through your soul, will not disappear. The things it brings are like becoming a part of oneself, although we don't know where it comes from, we just know that some things are just that. What else can we talk about? The girl frowned and pondered, finally thinking of a topic she could barely talk about. Qing, what are we going to do next? They have arrived at the green desert forest, should we do the next thing? Nan is well aware that Tianqing was not actually injured. She fell into a coma only because of a small side effect that occurred when she created her beast. When a person wakes up, nothing naturally happens. This is also the reason why the girl stopped Lanny from seeking a doctor. Tianqing doesn't need a doctor at all, and doctors like this are likely to cause them trouble. In this world, the enemy may not know where they are, but their power is definitely incredibly powerful. All physicians belong to the Heavenly Medicine Alliance, which is a powerful and complex force with complex roots. It is very likely that it is a force established by one of their enemies in this world. Girls dare not gamble. Qing is still too weak to be discovered by those guys. Qi asked me to help him find the red flame twin grass. Qi is a creature created by Tianqing, but it is not a newly created creature, but a creature that has existed for a long time and finally awakened again. But Qi has not fully awakened, it is still too weak and lacks the energy to awaken. Qi twin grass is the fastest thing in Qi's memory that can awaken him. So when Tianqing touched its sleeping area, Qi conveyed this message to Tianqing. When Tian listened to the red flame twin grass, a sense of familiarity from the depths of his soul enveloped the appearance and habits of the red flame twin grass. Another thing that I am very familiar with but don't know why. Red flame twin grass. The girl also felt a sense of familiarity, she always felt like this thing was something she used to use as a snack. Well, this idea is very dangerous and must not be known by anyone. The girl gave Tianqing a cautious glance and didn't react to anyone. She didn't know if she should breathe a sigh of relief. Although Tianqing closed her eyes, all the actions of the girl were concretized in her mind, and every hair was clearly visible, even the fluid flowing in her veins. So the action of the girl and her thoughts in her heart are naturally clear. What a fool, Tianqing thought lightly in his heart. This idea was naturally not caught by the girl. If the girl could know anything, would the creator still have any privacy in front of their creator? By the way, Qing, you just left like that. There won't be anything happening in the Yun mansion, will there? The girl, who was not aware of her own thoughtfulness and had already been seen through, was still trying to shift the topic. The Yun mansion mentioned by the girl also smoothly touched the heart of Zhuiyanxi. Yun Fu, that's where she lived for 20 years, and it's also her home. No, Uncle Air is not that foolish, and Yun mansion can't live without me. Tianqing shook his head lightly, and the safest way was to draw a clear line between Yun Fu and her. Her identity is like a mystery, even she herself cannot figure it out, the only thing she can know is that it involves a wide range of people and the enemy is very strong. If the Yun family were to unite with her on the front line, she would likely be affected, ranging from years of ruin to the severing of the entire Yun family's bloodline. Tianqing knew that if his second uncle could secure his position as the lord of Yunhua City, he could not be a fool. He must know what to do in the best interest of the entire Yunfu. Perhaps some people may not agree with that plan, but what's the point? She has already left and indeed took something very important from the Cloud Mansion. The girl remained silent. She felt that having some help around her was the best option, but Qing was too emotional and didn't want to live in a place where she had been affected for many years. She also didn't want to see her loved ones die because of her, so she chose to leave. There was a sudden silence between the two, and for a moment it didn't seem like they could unravel. Until a lively voice rang out not far away. "Sister Lanny, please slow down and stop scattering." Tianqing sat on a stone with a deep expression on his face, propping his chin with his hands, looking helpless. "Despite being a big shot, I had to start from scratch and didn't know what kind of person I used to be." Sigh. "By the way, thank you for the recommended ticket given by the Wi-Fi team of the air conditioner yesterday, as well as the recommended ticket just given by Xiaoyi, the medicine lady of San Miyuza, today. If we add more updates, can you interact with each other? I heard there seems to be a robot recommendation ticket, so I need to confirm if the opposite is a non-robot organism." End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Thank you and leave. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Thank you and leave. Gu Qin looked at Tianqing drinking congee, and only thought that the beautiful and clean boy, even if he drank congee, would drink it kind of cool and reserved. In fact, being stared at by a girl eating, Tianqing was not as calm as she appeared. Although the girl has no ill intentions, is this person a bit too enthusiastic and their gaze too fiery? Tianqing was a bit awkward, but she managed to cover up the embarrassment very well. Finally, the savior of Tianqing arrived, Yu Liang and Yu Sen, who had submitted their mission to the mercenary hall and returned. Yu Sen is a passionate and simple person, and as soon as he comes back, he always thinks about coming to see the rescued siblings. And Yu Liang, on the other hand, only he knows what calculations he is making. "You finally woke up." Yu Sen looked surprised when he saw Tianqing waking up. I always feel that his expression and tone are very similar to saying how you woke up. Tianqing fell silent for a moment and forced out a smile, saying, "Thank you for your concern, Yu is fine." So, can we not look at her with such an expression that looks at dead people but can still come back to life? She has always been a living person. It's all right. The body of the little brother is still too weak. Yu Sen just went up and patted the little brother on the shoulder. How could he know that the little brother was so weak that he almost fell into the congee after drinking? Hearing Yu Sen's roast, Tianqing suddenly felt a bit toothache. Is this big mercenary unaware that he hasn't actually disarmed his ability to create beasts? How powerful was that one just now? Yu Sen, he just woke up, and it's normal for him to have some weakness after finally waking up. Gu Qin defended Tianqing, although this defense seemed to be of little use. Yu Sen firmly believed that Tianqing's body was too weak. Look at that face, it was pale, and there was also that small body, weak and thin with arms and legs. It looked like he didn't eat well and had poor development. Yu Liang, on the other hand, said that as long as the sky tilts here for a day, he won't be able to catch the eye of this little white face for a second. This young master has just woken up for a while and needs to rest. It's better not to have so many people around him. Yu Sen and Yu Liang, you and Lanny's sister.in.law should go out together. The task has just been completed, and everyone should have a good dinner tonight. Guyu walked in and started to rush people. Yu Sen touched his head, let out a sigh, and walked out with great understanding. Yu Liang pursed his lips and didn't care if anything happened around this little white face, but he still left. We cannot leave a bad impression on Xiaoqin, nor can we leave a bad impression on Xiaoqin's brother. Lanny's sister.in.law has no objections at all. If she wants a good meal tonight, she needs to think about what to eat and what ingredients to buy in order to satisfy all 13 mouths. Guyu looked up and down at Tianqing. A person with such temperament could not have come from a commoner background, perhaps a young master from a noble family. I don't know why the two siblings ran to the edge of the green desert forest and almost lost their lives. As Guyu looked up and down at Tianqing had a smile on his lips, a clear and clean smile with a graceful demeanor, allowing Guyu to scrutinize. In fact, she is distracted and chatting with girls. It's said that we need to rest and not have too many people, but take a look, how many are missing. Upon hearing Tianqing's words, the girl's watery big eyes immediately swept around quietly. Well, it's one less. Yu Liang, Yu Sun, and Lanny left, but Guyu was at it again, along with the cold-hearted Zhong Wenjin. One is missing, it seems to be missing too. But there are indeed quite a few people. The girl's eyes rolled and she began to consider whether to drive some people out. I don't know, young master. Guyu looked at Tianqing, feeling more and more that this person didn't seem like a simple person. With this calm and composed demeanor in times of danger, it is destined not to be something in the pool. At Shimoyu, my elder brother can call me Yu. Tianqing smiled calmly, with a reserved and natural movement, while also carrying a hint of cleanliness and clarity. Guyu thinks that Tianqing is not simple, and Tianqing also thinks that Guyu is extraordinary. The young man's sword eyebrows and starry eyes were firm, with a righteous expression on his face. His skin, which was slightly dyed with a hint of ancient bronze, was clearly a recent appearance. Moreover, young people have good parenting skills, indicating that they were born well. But what caught Tianqing's attention the most was not the boy with a hint of luxury, but the middle-aged man behind him who remained silent but never left her gaze. The middle-aged man, with steady steps, had a hint of vigilance and caution in his eyes. Tianqing could feel that this guard and vigilance were not aimed at her, but at everything around her. A pair of young masters and ladies came to work as mercenaries, accompanied only by a loyal old servant. It seems that the situation between these siblings is even more complicated than she imagined. Tianqing doesn't like to meddle in things, even if it's her life-saving benefactor's business. So although she noticed something was wrong, since the siblings didn't say anything, she wouldn't ask. In fact, holding on to this mindset is just Tianqing, and Guyu also thinks the same way. There must be a secret about these siblings, but it's none of his business. He can't even protect Qing well, so he doesn't have the time and energy to meddle in his affairs. Why did Yu Gongzi appear on the edge of the green desert forest? It's said that it doesn't matter about the siblings, but Guyu is still very curious about this. What made these siblings appear there? It's not a safe place. If it weren't for them, people might have died. Yeah, you, how could you faint in such a dangerous place? Gu Qin is also curious about this. How could someone with an extraordinary family background appear alone with her sister on the edge of the dangerous green desert forest? Romeu cannot tell you about this matter. Tianqing had a hint of embarrassment on his face, and his handsome eyebrows slightly furrowed, making him somewhat conflicted. Gu Qin couldn't bear to be clean and pure. The little brother frowned in distress and immediately said that if he couldn't say it, there was no need to say it. Tianqing only dared to say such words after grasping Gu Qin's psychology, because she was very certain that once this sentence was spoken, these two well-educated individuals would definitely not continue to ask further questions. Does Master Moyu have any plans for the future? Zhong Wenjin, who had been silently observing Mou, suddenly asked, but in reality, it was a disguised order to expel guests. He dare not let such a dangerous person stay by the side of the young master and miss. If he hadn't been approached by those people, he would have been killed by the person who saved him halfway, crying uncontrollably. Yu is actually not a big deal, and the sky is still early. Yu and his sister should bid farewell to everyone here. Tianqing was so clever that he could naturally understand Zhong Wenjin's order to leave, and immediately proposed to leave with great awareness of the current situation. Tianqing. That's really thoughtful. Coincidentally, I don't want to have too much involvement with people either. Zhong Wenjin. Didn't you intentionally come together? Tianqing. Nonsense, it's not me, it's a girl. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Money bag not guaranteed. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Money bag not guaranteed. Gu Qin was definitely unhappy with Tianqing's departure, but she couldn't be the master of the Yue mercenary corps. With Gu Yu's silence and Zhong Wenjin's insistence, Tianqing, who had just woken up, left the residence of the Yue mercenary corps with her daughter. Qing, are you really okay? Within the sea of knowledge, there came inquiries from soft and cute girls with concern. Tianqing reached out to touch the girl's head, her sky-blue washed eyes carrying a touch of softness. Of course, she had nothing to do. Although her coma exceeded her expectations, she was indeed not a big deal. Apart from being in a coma for too long and waking up feeling like she was not very flexible in controlling her body, she had no other problems. The girl blinked her eyes and understood. Qing, how do we find the red flame twin grass? Since tilting is not a big deal, the most important thing is to find the red flame twin grass that Reddy needs. Their power on this side is too weak. Only by waking up Qi early and helping Tianqing, can their situation be safer and they can plan other things. Since Qi has guided us to the Qingma forest, there must be something we need here. Tian Tui is not worried that she may not find the red flame twin grass in the end. There must be a reason for Qi to ask her to walk this way, but the contact time is too short, and she cannot learn more news from Qi's mouth. Now everything can only rely on herself. Being brought into Qingma City was not something that Tianqing expected, and she never thought that those two people who already had a lot of trouble would be willing to help the other one, who seemed to be in a lot of trouble. Especially around them, there is an old servant who is loyal and dedicated to their needs. Tianqing always felt that such a team might not be willing to bring her at first. Perhaps something happened later. Thinking of this, Tianqing lowered his head and glanced at the girl. The girl stared at a pair of watery and innocent eyes, her innocent and adorable little face with a slightly pursed mouth, looking extremely innocent and innocent. But Tianqing was very clear that all of this was just her disguise. Human beings have a natural ability to relax towards their offspring, and they have no resistance against those beautiful and adorable offspring. Tianqing felt that this might be the reason for her creation beast. Although it is unclear what kind of person one used to be, Tianqing thinks that since they are the same person, even in their past and present lives, their personality will not change much. If you think about your original self with your current mindset, there won't be any problems. Are we going to the Qingma forest? As Tianqing pondered, the girl tiptoed up and looked towards the direction of the green desert forest. There seems to be something attracting and tempting her there. No, I won't go for now. Tianqing shook his head, and a very shallow smile bloomed on the clear and clean young man's face. The small pear vortex was soft and comfortable. They are already inside Qingma City now. It's a bit unreasonable not to first search for the traces of the red flame twin grass in Qingma City. Moreover, the Qingma forest is not a place where she can venture alone. Tianqing still has some confidence in his skills, but she looked down at the girl with short arms and legs, who was useless except for her face. This guy may not be certain. Her creation beast seems particularly weak. Where are we going to gather information? Nan didn't know that Qing had already drawn her to an area where her face was useless, and her soft and cute little face carried a hint of contemplation. Sister, I think we should first consider how to earn Huanju. Tianqing's sudden words startled the girl. It wasn't until she realized that Tianqing had not said anything that she couldn't say that she had the heart to study the meaning behind Tianqing's words. Huanju. The girl's eyes widened, indicating that she had not thought about this serious question before. Huanju is the universal currency of this world, and when they left Yunfu, it seemed that they did not take any collateral. Yes, Huanju. Without Huanju, we will be camping on the streets tonight. Tianqing's eyes were filled with helplessness, and this expression was made by a clean and clear boy without any discord. Huanju. Brother, how can we earn Huanju? The girl looked distressed and put her little finger on her mouth, looking both cute and obedient. Are you two missing Huanju? At this moment, a cheerful and smiling voice suddenly sounded. Tianqing and Nan looked over there together. Jia Shaodu was stared at by these two equally clean and flawless eyes, suddenly feeling a bit stressed. Does this big brother want to give me and my brother Huanju? The girl blinked her watery eyes, and the gesture of reaching out to beg was not repulsive, but rather made people laugh uncontrollably. Nan, don't talk nonsense. Tianqing reached out and tapped Nan's head, his movements gentle and indulgent. This big brother clearly has a way to help us earn magic bot. Really? How can big brother help us earn the magic bot? Why doesn't he just give us the magic bot? At this moment, the girl was like 100,000 questions, asking several questions in a row. Getting something for nothing is not right. Don't always think about what others will give you at a young age. Tianqing felt a bit amused in her heart. She just wanted to find someone who knew about Qingma City to lead the way. This little one was better off, and she directly asked for the magic bot from others. If it weren't for this cute face, those words would have meant getting beaten up. Right, your brother is right. We can't get something for nothing. Jia Shaodu tightly wrapped his money bag and sneered. He only came up to chat up when he saw that these siblings were very interesting and didn't seem to be locals of Qingma City at first glance. How could one almost lose their fantasy bot instead? Oh. You can see that the girl's expression was a bit regretful, her gaze brushing over Jia Shaodu's money bag. This action scared Jia Shou even tighter as he covered his money bag. It's too dangerous, this brother and sister. The onlookers couldn't help but laugh and cry. How could this soft and cute little girl make people wonder what to say? If someone else did this action, it would definitely be disgusting, but the person who did it was a cute and soft little loli. And this soft and cute little girl's eyes were clear, without any greed or desire. This makes people only laugh uncontrollably, without feeling disgusted. Jia Shaodu also knew that the little girl was not greedy, otherwise she would have left long ago and would not have been holding her money bag here. Tianqing noticed the gaze of those around him and raised his eyebrows slightly. Yes, everyone has such a high tolerance for young children, and they are also beautiful and lovely, so their tolerance is even higher. Having such a young cub around makes things much more convenient. That's the important reason why I made such a beast myself. Brother, could you please take a step and discuss more? Tianqing gave a particularly simple and comfortable smile and looked at Jia Shaodu. Not only are girls deceptive, but her current appearance is also very easy to let go of guard. The girl reached out her little paw, palms facing upwards, and blinked her clean and obedient eyes. Huanju. Tianqing tapped the girl's head helplessly and said, "Wrong, it's a ticket. Recommended tickets." The girl let out a cry and once again extended her paw, her expression particularly convincing. Vote. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Auction to Understand. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Auction to Understand. Jia Shaodu sat in the gluttony tower, with food in front of him that was full of color, aroma, and flavor, and he still couldn't recall it. Why did he bring those siblings to dinner? What happened? What is he doing? It's all because of those siblings, each one makes people feel softer. Jia Shaodu glared angrily at the siblings sitting opposite him. Tianqing's smile is light, and the small pear vortex at the corner of her mouth gives a gentle feeling. The girl has a bright smile, her watery eyes are a bit mischievous, and the way she sits obediently can really cute people's hearts. At this moment, the cute little creature was still exclaiming, "Are these all treats for my brother and me to eat? Big brother, you are really a good person." Jia Shaodu's anger suddenly dissipated. What's there to argue about with a child? That young man also looks younger than him. It's not good for him to argue over every detail. Little girl, try this fish. It's fresh, tender, and not fishy, and it melts right in the mouth. It's the signature dish here. Jia Xiaodu pointed to the plate of fish that was extremely expensive. The girl didn't even know what politeness was, so she really started eating it big. Tianqing's mouth twitched slightly, but she didn't focus on eating. The most important thing now is to earn Huanju. When leaving Yunhua City, I was too hasty and forgot to ask Uncle Air for some money to accompany me. Now I am penniless and have nothing valuable except for a cute girl who doesn't know what else to do. Brother Jia asked us before if we lacked Huanju and if there were any good channels to recommend it. Tianqing picked up the tea from Taotai Tower and took a sip, only to say that the taste was decent. Also, most of the mercenaries gathered in Qingma City are those who eat meat and drink alcohol in large bowls. Those who are naturally generous and straightforward are probably not interested in tea, which is more artistic. Of course there is, Jia Xiaodu said mysteriously in a lowered voice as he finally got down to business. Do you know what MOU brothers need to do to quickly accumulate wealth? Robbery. Tianqing gave a very face-saving answer and smoothly saw Jia Xiaodu's slightly cracked face. You. Jia Xiaodu never expected MOU, who had a clear and clean demeanor and looked like a nobleman, to give such a down-to-earth answer. Yes, down-to-earth, because he doesn't know what adjective to use to describe MOU. This answer is the most appropriate. Robbery is indeed quite profitable, brother. Are we going to block the way for robbery? The girl swallowed a round little ball and looked up at Tianqing. What are you thinking? We don't do robbery. Tianqing looked at the girl as if she had taken it seriously, and the curve of her mouth was somewhat helpless. Even if she was so poor that she couldn't afford to eat, she wouldn't do such a thing. Oh, the girl nodded, looking very well behaved and sensible, but Tianqing keenly caught this guy as if he had some regrets. Unfortunately, what? Can't we rob? Tianqing's mouth twitched slightly, wondering what kind of personality this creature was, and how she managed to create such a creature from her past self. This made her suddenly worried about the upcoming awakening of Qi. She didn't know what type of beast it was, and it wouldn't be like a girl, right? MOU, you really know how to joke. It turned out to be a joke, but Jia Shou breathed a sigh of relief and scared him to death. Brother Jia, let's be frank. To be honest, Yu is going out for the first time and doesn't know much about the outside world. Tianqing's face had a hint of just right embarrassment, and his voice was full of elegance. Understood. Jia Xiaodu burst out laughing heartily. If it weren't for the first time going out, I wouldn't have foolishly forgotten to bring money, which is a very important thing. However, the people in MOU's family were also careless enough not to know how to prepare money for the child on their first trip. But this is also a good thing for Jia Xiaodu. If it weren't for MOU's lack of Huanju, how could he sit here and discuss how to make money quickly? Have the MOU brothers ever heard of an auction? Jia Xiaodu's voice lowered a bit, saying that he had looked around before, as if he was afraid that someone might overhear his words. What Brother Jia means is that Qingma City is going to hold an auction soon. Tianqing raised her eyebrows, she naturally knew about the auction. Without money, she wouldn't be able to take photos of anything, but selling it is still possible. Tianqing seems to know what Jia Xiaodu's plan is. Yes, the specifications for this auction are quite high. If you have anything idle or willing to give up, you can take it to auction. Jia Xiaodu's eyes flickered slightly, this was the idea he was making. These siblings have an extraordinary family background, and they definitely have something in their hands that they can handle. It was finally their turn at home to hold an auction, but the other veins joined forces to suppress them and cut off all the things that could hold the auction. Fortunately, there were endless paths ahead, and he unexpectedly met a wealthy aristocratic young master on the way. Jia Xiaodu still has some skills in judging people. This person named MOU must have something good in his hand. Leaving aside anything else, let's just talk about his headband. Smooth and graceful, with alternating shades of green and blue during walking, definitely not ordinary. As long as they can get something from him, they won't mess up this auction and can barely explain it to the higher-ups. Jia Shaodu does not seek to make achievements, but rather seeks to have no mistakes. As long as they don't mess up this auction, the other lineages that don't like them won't be able to use it to drive them out. Tianqing lowered his head in contemplation, actually considering whether this matter was worth it. She doesn't have much in her hand, but there happens to be one that can be auctioned off in that column. And this kind of thing is definitely going to cause a sensation in Qingma City once taken out. However, auctioning this thing at Qingma City is a bit of a loss. In addition, there is another important point. Jia Shaodu's high standards may not be entirely accurate in her opinion. When Jia Shaodu approached her, there was a hint of sadness on his face, indicating that he was troubled by something tricky. If it's really a very high-standard auction, what else is worth worrying about? Before understanding this, Tianqing didn't dare to casually take out his things. Brother Jia, I wonder what the relationship between this extremely high-standard auction and you is. Will they be willing to accept my things? It was obviously inappropriate to ask directly, so Tianqing chose a roundabout tactic. Unexpectedly, Jia Shaodu's subsequent reaction was beyond her expectations. To be honest, this auction was held by my family. But we are missing a precious item that can hold the balance. Do the MOU brothers have something they can sell? Jia Shaodu is very direct, so direct that he doesn't seem like a business person. I'm normal. Don't put me and the girl together. I don't look like her at all, okay? Tianqing, spreading his hand. I have amnesia, I don't know anything, it's normal to think so. End of this chapter.